Hello, everyone. Joining me now is James David Dixon, managing editor of Capital Confidential. And there's a big story that's been happening in Highland Park. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me.
A lot of people have been following this story, and if you haven't across the state, it's worth following because everyone in Michigan, your tax dollars could be going to help Highland Park. Give us a little bit of background when it comes to the water bill situation for people who don't know. What are we talking about?
We're talking about a water bill that's a decade in the making. So this goes back to 2012, with unpaid water bills, and those add up. And so that's the city failing to pay the Detroit Water Department at the time, and then the Great Lakes Water Authority, which started in 2016. So this is a problem a decade in the making. And I think the one thing I would have everyone understand from this is that there's no non-bailout scenario available. Either the locals will bail them out, either the state will bail them out, or the feds will bail them out.
So either way, it's our tax dollars, either federal tax money, state. There's no other option, it sounds like, at all.
Correct, right? So we have a $24 million arrearage at this point. Highland Park has talked about, we should seek out an expedited bankruptcy. They want to have a quick process. Governor Whitmer's not as interested in a quick process. But then last week, something really interesting happened where a Senate Appropriations Committee, so they're working on the 2024 budget right now, the state budget. And in the Health and Human Services budget, they've included a $20 million partial bailout for Highland Park. And so that would mean that every taxpayer in Michigan is now footing the bill, uh, part of a $20 million bill that in a community of 8,900 people could never pay itself.
Wow. I have the article that I've been showing on the screen, and I'll put up again right here, where you wrote about this. You've done several stories on this, Michigan, capitalconfidential.com. You can go to the website. And so right now, the solution, it's in the legislature. I've heard I mentioned maybe emergency manager. That doesn't look like it might happen. So it looks like this could make its way through, and it could happen.
It could very well happen. The Democrats support it. They have enough votes to make their whole agenda happen as they wish, as long as all of them show up to work. But also the Detroit News had a great report about this. The suburban communities. Okay, so we talked about there's a local bailout scenario. That's what was already happening. And so there's 80 something communities in the Great Lakes Water Authority. And the way they approach the debt is if any community develops an arrearage, all of the communities have to kick in the bill. They all have to make up for it.
Now,
And so this came to a head last year because, starting in Macomb County, it moved to Wayne County, it moved to Oakland County. There was a revolt where these communities were saying, we'll pay for the water that we buy, but we will not send the Highland Park portion of our water bill. And that would have caused real, economic problems for the Great Lakes Water Authority. Then
wow.
Whitmer steps in and says, look, Great Lakes Water Authority, you guys got $25 million from the feds and the federal stimulus. Why don't you use that money? So it'll be very interesting to see, will the
Wow.
legislature's approach a state bailout happen, or will the Whitmer approach, which is essentially a federal bailout, will
Yeah,
that happen?
and that money is still, that's there. It's sitting there. That's still available.
It is still available. It hasn't been spent yet. Uh, and the one thing that softens the blow, yes, it is federal money. Yes, we've all paid into it, but it's already been appropriated,
Yeah, and this would
as
seem
opposed to
like
cutting a new check.
a quote rainy day.
It's a blizzard. It's a storm. It's a monsoon. This is the kind of thing that could drive Highland Park. They've raised the specter of bankruptcy. They want it expedited. They believe they have friends in Lansing, but bankruptcy is another form of a federal bailout
And that presents
where
a
you get,
whole list of situations. problems.
That's exactly it. You get some relief on your obligations, and who's giving you that relief? The taxpayers of the United States of America.
Exactly.
So there's no non-bailout scenario. One thing we should also take off the table, no one's talking about cutting off the water in Highland Park. That has never been discussed. That has never been seriously floated. Now, Highland Park will sometimes raise the specter of that, but the Great Lakes Water Authority has never said they'd do any such thing. They might not even be allowed to. I mean, the water is, something you need to survive. And so the question is, who's going to pay that bill?
Absolutely. The question, one of my last questions here, people would be thinking, okay, y- the taxpayers, they're going to have to deal with this, but are they working as they work through the legislation, hopefully something to look into how this happened, how to stop it from happening, and maybe to help other communities that are on the verge of something like this? I know the city of Flint has major issues with water bills, and other cities across the state possibly as well.
Well, there is talk of that where people are saying, okay, at least some of the problem in Highland Park is water waste. And so that a lot of water that's being distributed to the community never reaches an end user. It's wasted at some point in the stream. That's worth fixing. But Dave, I know you're a father. Sometimes, when you help your kid clean their room, the obligation then is that they keep it clean,
Yes.
right? So I think understanding this as a one-time bailout is one thing. The moral hazard becomes, is this going to create a circumstance in people's mind, and then even in the minds of people who lead communities, that if we choose to not pay a bill, ultimately we'll be bailed out?
Yeah, just like we're hearing the worries with the banking industry, banks, hey, if I fail, well, the government will come and bail me out. And
Right.
that people don't realize, oh, that's my money, your money, people watching, it's their money that's bailing them out. It just doesn't come out of thin air.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, and there's certainly no such thing as a free water bill.
Exactly. I'm going to bring that up on the website. This is your article here. You do a great job. MichiganCapitalConfidential.com. For those of you who are on Twitter, what is your Twitter account again? They can follow you.
I'm at down I-75.
Okay,
Now,
I'll put a link.
I will admit that all of my content is not necessarily Mackinac Center related. We get into the weeds there, but if you want to see the other side, if you want to see the human side, that's where I'm at. But my best work, the byline work, Michigan Capital Confidential.
Michigan Capital Confidential. You can go there and digging deep. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and we're going to do this more often, just to dig into stories that the media in Michigan, they don't give you the details. We're going in depth, and I really appreciate that you took time to join us.
Hey, thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you.